incredibly disheartening as well as pathetic, especially the system that says justice is blind and that everyone should be treated equally. Yeah, they should, but it's clearly not the case of how it actually ends up playing out.
You know, my law school professor would be fuming right now because he's the one that taught me, correct me if I'm wrong here, Adrian. When you engage in illegal activity, like let's say drinking too much, then driving, you are criminally and civilly responsible, even if you're out of your mind. You are criminally and civilly responsible if something adverse happens because you engage in the initial action that you knew could lead to this kind of outcome. Why is it that if the person happens to be high, he is no longer, according to the current narrative of law enforcement, responsible for the product that comes after him getting high? Tell me the difference here, if you could.
Oh, there's no difference. It's just selective application of the law. These officers, and I'm sure whoever the DA is, just using their judgment to decide of who they want to apply the law to and who they don't. Because it is absolutely correct that if you ingest something knowingly, whatever the consequences are is a you issue. And the fact that they don't want to hold this person accountable for their behavior, again, I do very much appreciate the use of discretion and deciding when you should enforce the law and shouldn't. But it's just interesting how those who enjoy the benefit of the law not being enforced tend to look a certain way, particularly when their victim also looks a certain way.
That's right. And that's the point we're trying to bring home here.
On my credit card. I spent my credit card. It's right here.
Military mission in Afghanistan will conclude
Mr. Decker, how are you today?
Trustee Winston, I'm great.
Good, good. How is that campaign? Stomping ground going? How you been doing?
Fun. It's fun. Yeah.
No, that's good. That is really, really good. I am a little less frazzled. I mean, that 1 week, it's amazing how 1 week hiatus kind of gave me an opportunity to kind of regroup. You know, I moved into my new home.
I see that.
Yeah, so my whole setup is a little bit better this week, but it isn't exactly where it was the way I had it before. But it takes time. The layout of my new house is a little bit different, so I'm a little bit more open, which I like it. But at the same time, I just got to get all of the balance and all this other stuff. So
right,
we'll get there. You got to stop by again. So hopefully you get some time to stop by.
I will. Yeah, I still got some blocks in Glenwood to do.
Good.
Yeah. I didn't realize I was looking at the early voting dates for, I think it's like October 24th, and somebody said, no, it starts the 29th in the city.
It does. So the super centers always start early. They always start early. So it depends. Our super centers would be like Daily Center, some of those places, where, it may not affect so many of us over in this particular area, but a lot of the super centers, you can start early voting, which is a good thing. I guess this has been one of the longest election cycles. It just feels like it's gone on and on and on. And yeah, I don't know about you. I'm exhausted and I'm not even running anymore.
There's times when, you can ask my wife. I come home and I'm exhausted, but it's like when I used to work with my dad, and he'd say, it's a good sore. You work a 10-hour day, you come home and it's a good sore, because I know, winter, like I've had people, last week or so, kind of like, you're going to get your ass handed to you. I don't, you're still running. I forgot you're even in the race, and, just trying to play games or whatever they're trying to do. And it's like, you know what? I'm having fun. I'm remaining myself. And ultimately, I've already won, because the people I've met, the influences that I've made, and just the overall experience of running this campaign I consider myself already a winner. So,
well, listen, and that's a good thing, because no matter what the outcome is, you're doing more than 99% of the people out here. They wouldn't even put their investment behind. You got these people who talk trash and talk about politicians. They talk about this, they talk about that. But when it comes down to honestly putting their best foot forward, or putting their money where their mouth is, right? You don't have that many people that would do that. Tonight's show, honestly, is going to be we're going to be talking about the no cash bail. I have my guest is Matthew Rosenberg. I think he's going to be our guest speaker. He is no fan. I mean, hopefully people know, if you haven't heard of him, he's an author, he's a reporter, and I'm pretty certain that it's going to be a really very good discussion. That's why I got on here super early, because I'm like, let me get set up. But I did invite the sponsors of the bill, so I don't know if they're going to be able to make it on, but I know he's supposed to be coming on, and I'm looking forward to some of the conversation with that, especially in this day and age where I don't know if you've been seeing some of the commercials. I was at the golf course last week, my first time playing golf ever. And I heard the screaming. I turned around, I look at the TV, and Jason, there was this ad talking about, how crime is going to be running rampant, and how, with the SAFE Act, I mean, they are really fanning the flames of, the shit's going to hell in a handbasket. So this should be a very good discussion. I'm looking forward to it. Actually, it may be one-sided, depending on what side of the aisle you're on. But there is a lot of fear tactics being used, and it's going to be interesting to see how the conversation turns today.
With most Republican talking points, it comes down to fear-based. It's extreme. It's going to be this. I am not a complete fan of it, because there is, as any piece of legislation that comes out of Springfield is overloaded with nonsense, and just they overcomplicate. The average person can't even have the time to read the entire thing. I'm going to yell. I'm gonna see if, because I actually have to leave around 7:30, 7:40.
Okay.
I have my interview tonight, or my endorsement interview with the independent voters of Illinois.
That's
So
good. That's
I
good.
I
So,
can't miss that. I know they typically endorse socialists, so, but if
well, listen, so I don't know. They endorsed me when I ran recently. They did endorse me. And I don't know. I think it's a good endorsement from them because they're kind of non-biased. And but it'd be nice if it wasn't just the endorsement. It'd be nice if that endorsement came. Most of us, if the candidates running for office, we need the extra ramp. We need the bodies. We need the funding. So it would be nice if their endorsement also included, some of those particular things. Because when you're a candidate running for office, that's what you really need. You probably need manpower more so than the money. Because if you can get people out there to stomp the pavements and knock on some doors for you, or even stand out and man the polls on early voting, that can make a difference. But they'll give you the endorsement, they'll give you the JPEG, they'll give you the letter. But as far as giving you what you really need, good luck with that, because they just don't. They really just don't. They don't have it. I guess their infrastructure or their organization is not. Is just not able to offer that type of assistance. But I think it's still a solid endorsement from them. If you can get that endorsement, it's solid, because it kind of stands true with your independent stance. Hello. Yes, it is. Oh, well, okay, because we're on Zoom. I'm sorry, Matt. We're on Zoom. Did you get the Zoom? Go in through Zoom, because really we don't use the Google Meets. We use the Zoom. Thank you very much. We're looking forward to you. All righty. Bye-bye. Okay, so that was Matt there. So he's actually on a different platform. So when you send out the Google link, it actually sends out. When I send out the invite for the Zoom, it sends out the Google Zoom, a Google link. We never use the Google link to get on the show. We do air, if you're just joining, welcome to Tea and Conversation. We do air the show on Facebook, and we air it on YouTube. So if you're on Zoom, I'm putting this out there in the atmosphere. Hello, Michelle. If you're on Google, if you're on Google Meetups, you're not going to be able. I'm not going to know it, because I don't look at the meetups. I only look at Facebook. I look at the YouTube, and I look at the Zoom link. The Zoom is where we actually have the conversation. So join us using the link for Zoom, not Google Meetups. Michelle, how are you today?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm doing good. I'm doing good. A little chilly. Did you decide to turn that heat on?
No, not yet.
That's what I said. I'm not turning no heat on. It's just not going to happen.
It's really not that cold. If it was sustained this cold for days, then maybe.
Yeah.
But right now, no, not yet.
Yeah, well, it was. Let me tell you something. It was cold enough, but I was not turning on that heat. I don't even want to start that. Today should be an interesting conversation. So, if you're just joining, welcome to Tea and Conversation. Our special guest is Matt Rosenberg. I am looking forward to this candid conversation about the no cash bail, the SAFE Act, or whatever they call it. There has been so many, Matt. I'm going to give you the floor in a minute or three. There has been so many crazy commercials. I don't know if you've seen them. I don't know if you've read them in the paper. I've been reading many papers where they're really fanning the flames of how the world is going to end as we know it with the SAFE Act. So, and I'm being facetious, Matt. I'm certain that you take this serious. I heard it in your voice. I take it serious too. But I do also want to get into some of. We're going to get into a lot of different things during this hour. First thing I want to do is say welcome to Tea and Conversation, Mr. Rosenberg. How are you today?
I am great, Adam. It's Rosenberg.
Rosenberg. You know what? I'm looking at it, and my mind is going one way,
I know. No worries, but just for the record, it's great to be with you, Adam. And
thank you very much.
Yeah.
So
Am I on video or just audio?
You're on video and audio.
Oh, okay. Very good.
Yes.
Very good. Cool.
So you're also on YouTube and you're also on Facebook. So we stream the show. We really don't use the Google Meetups. We use the Zoom where we do the discussion portion of it. But then we also do the Facebook where people can ask questions. And then we also do the YouTube where people can go back and they can see it. They can make comments as they progress and so on and so forth. So we only use the 3 platforms. Zoom, if you want it and you want to participate in the conversation, and then Facebook, of course, is so easy to, get those people who just jump in, want to ask a question and jump out, and then of course YouTube, which is a good platform because it allows people to go back and kind of.
Oh no, absolutely, and thank you for all that, and I'm really glad to be with you.
Fantastic. So again, welcome to Tea and Conversation. We do this show every Monday at 7 p.m. And we bring to the public information, news that they can use that I think is important. I know that this is very important. I mean, believe me, I was at the golf course for the very first time I ever went to golf. And I went to golf last week to take care of some business. You know how we do it as politicians. And while I'm in there, I was sitting there trying to order me a bag of peanuts to be on the golf course, because I'm like, I can't just ride in this golf course with nothing to eat, nothing to drink. And then I hear the screaming, Matt. I hear the screaming. And I'm like, what the heck is going on the TV channel? And interesting enough, right around 911, of course, because of course 911 was yesterday, if you have been keeping up with things. You get the screaming and yelling, and they see crime running rampant, and oh my God, the world is going to hell in hell. Matt, don't get me started, okay? You said what now, Jason?
It's Y2K all over again.
I mean, it was the craziest commercial I've ever seen. But in any event, I did, Matt, for the record, I did invite a sponsor of the bill. I invited Senator L.G. Sims. He is one of the sponsors of the bill. He did not come back and he did not say anything. So I don't want to make it appear that I did not invite other people to come on to the show.
I wish he were joining us.
You know what? Listen, he may join, but he was invited. Okay. I even had some surrogates reach out to him. But again, I don't play that game. If you want to come on, I feel like if you sponsor the bill, you should be easy. You should be willing to talk about it. You know what I mean? But in any event, I also know that it's election season, Matt.
Of course.
Okay. So I think that some of the people are kind of trying to toe that line. But the bill was sponsored by LG Sims. Why don't you tell us why we should know about this bill, Matt? Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Well, the bill, known popularly as the Safe Tea Act, was passed in the wee hours of the lame duck session of the legislature in 2021. Lawmakers had a 50-page bill dumped on their desk in the wee hours, and it was kind of like that healthcare bill a number of years back in Congress. They had to pass it to see what was in it. Now, there's some good things in there, like mandates for more body cameras across the board for law enforcement agencies in Illinois, but there's a lot of stuff that's fairly toxic. I think the thing that is capturing everybody's attention right now is the end of cash bail, the effective end of cash bail on January 1st of 2023. There are other things in the bill that are causing a lot of concern. One of them is that. Could you excuse me, Adam? Talk with your other guests. I'll be right back.
No problem, Matt. And just to pick up where Matt is, it was a 746-page bill. In terms of all the logistics, I don't know the speediness, the expediness of this particular bill that was passed. You had 13 sponsors on this particular bill. Needless to say, depending on what aisle you are on, it's probably gonna decide whether you are in favor or not in favor of this bill. I think for the most part, if you don't know what the SAFE Act is the Safety Act is, the no cash bail, if you want to call it, is that it's supposed to not, if you have a issue with the law and you don't have the funding, as opposed to holding you in jail because you lack the funding to bail out, this is supposed to make it much more on an even playing field. So I'm looking forward to Matt to come back on here to tell us his side. Now, I do know, Matt, are you back?
I am back. Sorry about that.
No worries. So I was just bringing people up. It's a 746 page bill that was sponsored by many Democrats in 2021. It had 13 sponsors, one of them which is LG Sims. That's the person who I actually invited. And I know right now they're in the process of trying to repeal this bill. But in any event, why don't you go ahead and take it from there?
A few of the other provisions that have people concerned are that reportedly people who break off their ankle bracelet for electronic monitoring, there will be a 48-hour period until law enforcement authorities can pursue them. So as one suburban mayor, Keith Pekow, in fact, of Orland Park, has said, they'd have time to practically drive to Alaska. In the interim, for trespassing, police can no longer arrest people for trespassing. They can only give them a ticket, as if, for instance, they had failed to use their turn signal when making a turn in their vehicle. There's a whole host of other things. There's just so much in it. You know, you could spend about 2 weeks going through all 750 pages, and it's written in dense legalese. But I think the biggest thing by far right now is the effective end of cash bail. Now, there are some weasel words in there that give prosecutors a chance to petition the court to put back in any pre-trial charged offenders who pose a risk. But the trouble is that prosecutors have to show that there's a threat to a specific person, as opposed to the community at large, and that can be very difficult to prove. So these are some of the things that have prosecutors concerned. There's also a flood of information coming out about this bill, as you've noted, Adam, and there is a list circulating naming a number of very serious crimes that will be, non-detainable, right? Now we're talking about guys who haven't gone to trial yet, right? So it's scaring a lot of people. We've been trying to do some homework at WirePoints, which is the news site where I work, to verify through state's attorneys' offices and by looking deep into the guts of this bill. And believe me, that's something I wouldn't wish on anyone. We're trying to verify that this list of horrible sounding crimes, are essentially non-detainable before trial for the charged offenders. We're getting there, but we're not quite there yet. But there's great concern. And this story, as you know, Adam, has gone national and I think even international. People are really picking up on the fact that Illinois is effectively going to be ending cash bail. New York did this to some degree, New York State, and there's great controversy about whether it's helped or hurt. Mayor Eric Adams wants to roll back a state law. The Democrats passed there. So to say that this is a hot button issue is putting it mildly. In the backdrop, as you know, in Cook County, Adam, and Chicago is, the scream, right? That scream was real. That video you saw at the golf club, that was a woman That was a woman being victimized by 3 or 4 armed robbers on a street in the Avondale neighborhood of Chicago, just off of Milwaukee Avenue. And what I have to tell you, as someone who has lived in Chicago for 30 years and then came back after I wrote my book and moved back here to report on this stuff, it's bad, man. It's really bad. I was here in 2020. It's much worse than 2020.
So Matt, then thank you very much. If you're just joining, thank you for joining Tea and Conversation. We have Matt here, and we are talking about the no cash bail. Matt, I mean, I guess my concern, right, is that for starters, yeah, I know we have some challenges in areas of opportunity with some of the things that are going on. However, I guess my real concern is some of these commercials almost fanning. I mean, they're fanning that fear factor, and even though, I mean, these people, like you just said yourself, they haven't really been convicted of anything. They have to still go to trial. Should they be held in jail before they're even found guilty of anything, and just be simply because they don't have the money to bail out? And I guess that's what it boils down to, right? Because if they had the money, they could bail out anyway. So is that the wrong assumption to have with this?
No, not in the least, Adam. And this whole thing starts from a legitimate place. The question is the context of the crime and of the offender's own criminal history. So, for instance, I would absolutely agree with anyone who says that, say, a first-time nonviolent offender should not be held before trial simply because he or she can't make bail. Now, when I say a first-time nonviolent offender, I mean, for instance, obviously first time, someone who's never been nailed before, right? Number 2, nonviolent. So if they're doing, say, a petty shoplifting or something, right? And they get nailed for that and they're poor, they should not be held because they can't make $250 bail or $500 bail. I would say absolutely, I agree with that. The problem that we have, especially in Cook County, it's at a whole new level where this conception of social justice has replaced criminal justice, and the rights of criminals or charged criminals, yes, who may have many prior convictions, are put over the rights of victims and witnesses. So, for instance, what you see time and again in Cook County, unfortunately, guys with multiple prior convictions for serious stuff, right? Armed robbery, car theft, carjacking. So they've got a record. Maybe they're on probation. Maybe they've done a year or 2 or 3, right? Then they're back out there on the street, and for one reason or another, they did not choose the straight life. So they're still pursuing the thug life. And say a guy, he jacks a car, he carjacks with a gun. Well, he might get out on, $2,000 bail, and he's got someone to throw the bail for him. Then he's out there again before trial. He goes and he commits more carjackings, or he joins up with some pals in an armed robbery crew, like the one that made that woman scream. So the thing is, people start to wonder what's going on here. Are the inmates running the asylum, literally? So you've got very different scenarios. And in some scenarios, no cash bail is appropriate. In other scenarios, it is not appropriate. And I do agree, we have to look at all political ads on TV and all of these issue ads and advocacy work. You got to look at that with a critical eye. And we feel that's what makes publications like Wire Points, where I serve as the senior editor, very important. Yeah. Because we go at it first through the facts. We're taking our time to investigate the claims on this one.
Well, so Jason Decker, you had your hand up. Did you have a question for Matt?
No, you know me, Adam. I got so much I want to say, but I'm just going to keep it simple. Wire Points is a great source of unbiased information. It's great.
Thank you.
I like seeing Ted. I can't pronounce what's his last name? Ted.
Ted Dabrowski, one of our guys. Yep.
I follow him all the time, and I love his posts and his insights. And I just, when I raised my hand, I just wanted to say, like, anything that gets shoved over the desks at midnight come on. I mean, you got to be skeptical of it. And one of my favorite YouTube videos is Mike Bost from about 10 years ago, and he threw the budget on the House floor, and he was swearing and left it. He said, "This is what comes across my desk, and it's supposed to pass." And it was a stack this high, you know. And it's true. And I'll simplify it. Everything that starts out as legislation is great. It has great intentions. It's logical. It makes sense. And then they mess it up.
Well,
and they overload it with nonsense. And I forget the word you used, Matt, but the legalese, I think is what you said.
Legalese.
Yeah.
Yes, it is not written in plain English, man. Not even close.
How many pieces of legislation did Springfield pass last year?
Oh God, I don't know, thousands, hundreds, not sure.
I think somebody told me it was like 800 and just under 900. It was like 872 pieces of legislation. How many do we know about? How many I mean, it's a mess. And with this bill, there are so many great, logical, common sense things that are kind of sad that they even have to be put in there. Like the fact that an officer of the law has to help somebody who's injured, especially if it's caused by them. That's great. Body cams, great. I mean,
okay. So for a minute, I just want to pivot just for 1 minute to get back to some of the ads, and I'm going to show one, Matt. And I guess this is where my concern is, because is this ad being fair? Just hold for a minute. I'm going to share this ad. Okay.
Sure.
So hopefully you can see, hopefully you can hear the ad. Can you hear it? Can you see the ad?
I can see it. I can't hear it.
Okay. Let's see if I can share. I don't know if the sound is actually showing, but the ad is actually, even if you can't hear it, it's really talking about the America's crime crisis.
They are fleeing for the suburbs.
Yeah.
Data. All crime is up nearly 40% this year, with significant increases in theft and carjackings, burglaries, and robberies. Our next guest is now considering moving her store after a burglary last year.
So again, Matt, I don't know if you could hear the sound. I really wish that you could. I haven't mastered that quality yet, and I'm going to get there. But
actually, I did pick up on the sound at the end, and I am familiar with that story. I'm not sure that was an ad, but it was showing a Fox News segment reporting some increased crime according to police department stats. That stuff was totally legit. And I know the story they're reporting about a recent downtown business robbery. A store got robbed, and the woman who was the owner spoke out. So I'm familiar with that. We know there's a host of other ads going on. There's the one with the scream that's directed against J.B. Pritzker and Lori Lightfoot.
Yes.
And there's a whole series of articles in a bunch of newspapers owned by Dan Proft, who I know, and funded by Richard Uihlein, the billionaire, I guess, who was also backing Darren Bailey. And there are some people, what I haven't heard is a refutation of the articles in the Proft-sponsored newspapers. What I have seen even today is Axios Chicago, for example, calling it fake news because it's a political effort often presented in newspaper articles. But what I would like Axios to do, and what we are trying to do at Wire Points, is verify whether the claims are correct or incorrect. And the biggest claim in all of the Proft newspapers on this is that there is a list of certain crimes like intimidating a public official, drug-induced homicide, and about 5 or 6 other crimes that rightly sound horrible and are horrible, and it calls them non-detainable offenses, meaning if someone is charged with those, they cannot be held on bail. No one has refuted the accuracy of this. We are being asked at wire points whether this is an accurate claim, and we have started to dig in, and we are expecting to publish something soon. In fact, I'm working on this with Ted Dabrowski, but what we are learning so far, and this comes, number one, from the office of Jim Glasgow, the Will County State's Attorney, the one who said we should be expecting the end of days. And mind you, he is a Democrat too, which is well worth noting. This is a bipartisan concern on the part of 100 out of 102 Illinois state's attorneys. But his top assistant dug into this at our request because we asked her, you know what? Where is the actual language in the bill that names these 7 or 8 horrible sounding offenses? Where is the language that tells us these are non-detainable offenses? Unless you can prove intent to harm a specific individual if you let the guy out before trial. And what she came back and said is, well, it is accurate, but it's reverse engineered.
Yes.
And she said there's a list of other crimes in there, and I found it. It's like a variety of weapons offenses and some sex offenses. And it says, except for these, you got to jump through a whole ton of hoops, right, to hold a guy before trial for us. So I think what the advocates of those ads are trying to point out is that there's some really bad stuff that prosecutors are going to have a very hard time holding someone before trial if they're charged with it. And that's what that bullet pointed list that's upsetting everybody is all about. No one has proved that claim is wrong, but we would like to see if there is clear evidence that the claim is correct. So we're working on it.
So for Matt, and you can correct me if I'm wrong because I did not read all 750 pages. I just read them.
I haven't gotten there either, but we're dipping in anyway. Go ahead.
But so just for the record, and thank you for joining us. If you're listening, the Safety Act, no cash bail, just for points of reference, it's not in effect until when?
Well, here's the interesting thing. Most of it is in effect already, but this part where cash bail is greatly restricted or effectively ended, choose your phrase, that does not go into effect until January 1st of 2023. But most of it has already been in effect. And really where this goes, so there are a couple of things, Adam, and we can get back to specifics. And by the way, I should mention one other provision is that they are studying already whether to end qualified immunity for law enforcement officers. That is a very big deal to cops. That means that if you injure someone in the course of doing your job according to the rules, you cannot be sued personally, right? You have a qualified immunity. The qualification is, you can't be beating people up and expecting protection against a civil lawsuit if you're a cop. But if you're doing your job, if you think there's a threat to you, you maybe even have to use force. Or some guy gets mad at you because you put him in cuffs because he was resisting a little. If this qualified immunity provision goes through, you could be sued for that. That is driving people out of the profession. So that's another aspect of this. But to back up the bus, this issue is very important. There is no question. And the state's attorneys of the collar counties are estimating that about 4,000 or 5,000 inmates will have to be let out on January 1st. Now, we don't know whether this law is prospective or retrospective. That's another issue I'm investigating that is not being discussed. In other words, is this going to apply only going forward from January 1st? That's prospective. Or will it apply to guys who are already sitting in jail waiting trial because they couldn't make cash bail? Guys who were put in before January 1st, that would be retrospective. So there's a lot of this fine print to figure out. But the bigger concern to me, Adam, is this is super important, but we shouldn't forget about other stuff that's equally important apart from bail and pretrial detention. In other words, what is the arrest rate in Chicago? It's dramatically low. We have reported on that. Also, how many cases get dropped before they are prosecuted after police make an arrest and identify a suspect? How many cases does, for instance, Cook County State's Attorney Kim Foxx and her staff, what percent of cases do they decline to prosecute? Number three, what is the conviction rate? Number four, what are the actual outcomes of the convictions? In other words, what kind of sentences do guys get? And when you see guys out on probation who then kill a Chicago cop, as was the case with Officer Ella French last summer, when you see guys who are out on probation, like for 2 or 3 carjackings or other felonies, and then an 8-year-old girl gets murdered by one of them with a gun in Little Village, that was Melissa Ortega. When you see, a 65-year-old retired Chicago Fire Department officer named Dwayne Williams get killed down in Morgan Park defending himself with a gun against 4 armed carjackers. An African-American community leader who mentored Black youth to go into emergency services professions. A guy who was just a pillar of the community. And these guys all were out on bail before trial. So what is already happening in Cook County could be coming to the collar counties and the rest of the state.
But if they were already out on bail, and Matt, I thank you again for all of that. But they're already on bail, and right now it's really not a non-cash bail. And is it one of those things where we're laying blame? We just throwing it out. We're lumping all of our coals together, right? I mean, I think that some of these individuals that are doing some of these things, whether it was a no cash bail or if it was a bail, if they had an opportunity to get back out, they're going to do some of this. They're going to continue on. Are we now? Is it kind of misleading when we even mention Lori Lightfoot? Like, how does she have anything to do with this? I mean, she didn't sponsor the bill. And when I see commercials where they're throwing her on, they're throwing her in the mix.
I'm with you on that. I think there's plenty of ways.
They're really reaching here, Matt. I mean, they're really
on that one, Adam. Yes, for sure. I think there are ways that you could make arguments that Lightfoot has failed to step up to the crime that is eating Black communities and now white and Latino communities alive in Chicago. You could make that argument and we could have that conversation, but she does not control the Cook County courts, right? No. So yeah,
and even the Cook County courts, they're just going to be following the laws, right? So even not Lori Lightfoot, Kim Foxx's office, their jobs really are to uphold the law. So throwing even Kim Foxx in that pile of gumbo, right? Is that a fair claim?
Well, not entirely. And this is why I was emphasizing before that there are other issues like the prosecution rate, the conviction rate, what kinds of sentences are handed down, and so forth. So this is one issue that is absolutely a hot button issue, but we ought to really look at sentencing and making the aggregate data, right? Courtroom by courtroom, how are these judges performing and how are these prosecutors performing? What kind of results are they giving us? And, can we evaluate whether justice is really being done? We're actually in the dark, groping around, because this whole system is like a large elephant. And it's like that old fable where everybody thinks he's a wise man, but he's only got his hand on one piece of the elephant. And he's describing that one piece of the elephant. So I do not believe in oversimplifying this stuff, but that does not mean that it's not legit to go at this issue of no cash bail. I do think I agree with you, Adam. You got to pick your targets carefully and be precise in your claims and do your homework. So this is a real tough one for everybody to get their hands around. And there's a temptation to take shortcuts.
Well, I'm looking here, and if you, this is, you know, I get papers from all over, so I'm looking at the South Cook News, right? And I don't know who sponsors this newspaper or writes it, but when I look at Lightfoot Summer of Joy and Murder, right, and Mayhem, and
Right,
then
right.
I look at Bailey talking about how the crime is out of state's attorney's office involved in those. I mean, it just seems like that they were using fear. You know, you have a lineup of all of these individuals in here under the Safety Act, if you can see that in between.
Yeah, and I'm familiar with that public.
I mean, it's
Yeah.
almost misleading, and I just think that it misleads the public, and it creates this false narrative. I don't even play golf. I'm going to be honest with you. I was in there because I was invited to a meeting at a golf course, and I'm just in there getting me a bottle of okay, it was a bottle of beer, but in any event, nevertheless, I'm just standing there, and I hear, ah! And I turn around and look at the television, and Bailey is talking about that the purge is happening right now, and crime is running rampant. The bill is not even in place, right? It's not even really in place, Matt, right? Because it doesn't really start
this aspect of the bill. So that paper comes from an organization associated with and supervised or co-supervised by Dan Proft, who is a well-known conservative radio talk show host. And I think you should have Dan on your show to address that, because
I would have loved to.
I will tell you this, Dan will, and I don't speak for him or against him, he will stoutly defend the context and accuracy of what he's putting in those papers.
Listen, I wouldn't expect him to do anything.
I'm not going to do that. You get him on, you get a sponsor of the bill on, man, have them duke it out.
Right. Well, listen, so again, for the listeners out there, I did invite at least LG Sims, Senator LG Sims. I know. We got 3 months before election time, Mr. Decker. And I know that certain individuals just were not going to come, even if I invited them there. I personally think that if you, as a politician, and not only a Monday evening host, I'm a politician. I would, if I sponsored the bill, I'm going to be right on here, you know, waving. You know, I must believe in it, right? So I would stand by my initiative. So I was hoping that some of the individuals that I invited, besides you, Matt, would have actually showed up. I know so off the record, I have talked to some people in the legal profession, some judges, and some people from the state's attorney's office. I cannot mention their names because they asked me not to, but they're not in favor of it, right? And they're not in favor of it for a number of reasons, but they also feel like they have to follow the law. So it's like the right and the left, sometimes y'all may have some likeness, right? You both like it, but when you start throwing people who honestly are with you on some of these issues, like the state's attorney's office, many of her people are not in favor of this. Many of these judges have, behind the scenes, have expressed their concerns with this particular bill, but they have an oath that they have to follow. And that once this bill came down, it becomes law. And what are they to do? Mr. Decker, thank you very much for joining us. I will talk to you next week. But in any event, I'm just wondering, you know, I mean, there's so much questioning and so much wondering behind this particular bill. How do we get more people to understand it when we got commercials such as in newspapers such as this that are really kind of misleads people, and it makes people not know what to believe, or to believe that it's all, is it something that we need to be concerned of, or is it something there's no smoking gun here? How do we really get people to understand this bill? And should they understand?
I have to go back to the backdrop that precedes this bill, which is that in Cook County, we do have a problem with crime. We have a big problem with recidivism, especially if you measure 9-year recidivism like one state panel has done, as opposed to just 3-year recidivism. We have a problem. In Chicago, we have very big problems. We also see violent crime spreading to the suburbs. Oak Park, other western suburbs, northern suburbs, Waukegan and North Chicago. I wrote about this recently at Wire Points. People are up in arms in large parts of the collar counties, not just Cook, about increasing violence. And so really, you know, legislation is always going to be a legitimate part of this conversation. But I'll tell you something, Adam, and this is going broad, but also going deep. Back in 2020, when Chicago was blowing up, I went down to the South Side to do field work and interview people, Black families and Latino families, for a book that I wrote called What Next Chicago? Notes of a Pissed Off Native Son. And so I'm sitting at people's, you know, dining room tables down at 90th and Aberdeen in Washington Heights, talking to people like Latasha and Ron Fields with their 4 children. And she's telling me, you know, the danger my Black son's face is not from a white Chicago cop. It's from other Black men. And the real deal, looking at official data from the city of Chicago, is that 80% of murder victims in Chicago are Black. And when they last measured the race of the perpetrators, 70 to 80% every year for 21 years were Black. And if you look at most of the other crimes, now, you know, you can look at the that picture of suspects who might be let out in that Dan Proft newspaper and say, oh, he's fanning the flames of hatred because most of them are Black. Sadly, it turns out that a vast majority of the people arrested, Adam, and you know this, you know, it's common talk at the kitchen table, a vast majority of the people arrested for crimes like carjacking and armed robbery in Chicago and murder are Black, some Latino. No Asians are ever arrested for this stuff, not once. You know, whites a little bit, but hardly at all. So really, this goes back to the family, to the community, to issues of culture. And this is the conversation that white people are told they can't participate in. And this is where I say, frankly, hell no, brother. We're all in this together. And if we are going to divide ourselves and ask for permission slips to talk about why I'm now nervous about walking on the street in Rogers Park, right next to where I stay in Evanston, if we're going to ask for permission slips for me to talk about why I turned around and walked the other way on a block in Evanston today, because when I was starting to walk down the block, I saw a car with blacked out windows stop and back up like they were making to jack my phone and wallet as soon as I walked by them. That has never happened to me before. And I am now totally dialed into those things. So things are getting funky out there. This is what I'm trying to tell you. And we're all in it.
But Matt, and I appreciate that. I can hear the passion. But when I looked at this particular paper, and I honestly, I have to tell you, I wasn't even looking at the color of the individuals. So I wasn't, and I do see some other individuals in here. Now that you've mentioned it, they're not actually African American. The Safety Act, it won't just benefit African Americans, will it? So I don't know how we ended up getting on color, right? And that's my concern. This should not be a color issue crime, and the misconception over
conduct,
Matt.
Yes.
Oh, well, hold on a second for a minute, Matt.
Well, but you
over the years, crime is not a color issue. Crime is crime. And we need to get crime under control, be it Black, white, Puerto Rican, or what have you. So I'm not looking at the Safety Act as something exclusive just to, because when I look at, when I walk down the street and I see a group of any white, Puerto Rican, I don't give a damn. If they look like they're fit the profile of being into something, I tend to cross the street as well. Go ahead, Matt.
No, I heard you say that you found it offensive that the pictures in that newspaper were mostly of African Americans.
No, I know that's not what I said.
Maybe I misunderstood you. I was trying to address that.
Yeah, you know. So what I said was the pictures of all of these individuals. Not, it had nothing to do with color. It has more to do with the scare tactics of this particular paper to scare the crap out of people that the Safety Act is going to have people out on the street that are common criminals, the same thing that the commercial did, and just going around just being anarchists because now they're free to just do that. My thing is, we're going to use fear as a motivator to vote for a different way, and that's what I feel like this is being used as a weapon to weaponize people to go to the polls and vote one way or another. I'm not even thinking about the color because.
Okay, I hear you loud and clear, and I will try and address this. I think, first of all, there is already a lot of fear. Number two, I cannot defend or support someone else's newspaper. I can speak for what we do at WirePoint. So again, you want to have an on-air conversation with Dan Proft, it's clear. I hope he will oblige you soon, and I'm sure he will defend his work stoutly. But I will say this, Adam, there is fear already. And if we simply dial it back to what's been going on in King County, what's been going on in Chicago and in some of the suburbs, that is the real baseline issue here. Do we have a problem with violent crime? I can tell you there is fear. I can tell you you go to downtown Chicago these days, except for the occasional music festival, it's often looking, if not exactly like a ghost town, something fairly close to it. You know, I read a news story the other day where a vendor out by the museum campus, you know, the Shed Aquarium, the Field Museum, all of that. You know, I almost bought a condo down there in 2020. I'm on the phone with my wife in Seattle telling her, I love this. I love Roosevelt Road. I want to buy us a condo. And I changed my mind because of crime and taxes, because the Roosevelt Road L station has turned into a mugging field and a shooting field and a knifing field and a killing field. It's not good.
But Matt, is that, and I guess I'm trying to say, is that really the issue? Is the no bail no bail going to be the issue, or is it just a problem with crime, period? I guess
here's the thing, they intersect closely. Here is the problem. The future is already here in Cook County because Tim Evans approved something called bail reform in 2017. Okay, so we've had our own Safety Act with reduced circumstances of cash bail for quite a while now. The judges in Cook County have been under instruction for 5 years now. They do keep numbers on this and they try and tell us the impact is minimal. There have been studies by Loyola professors. They say, I think, if I remember right, only about 20% of those released before trial go on to commit another crime. But you know, what we have seen is story after story, real news stories of guys who were out on bail with, you know, on serious charges, who then went and did other really rotten stuff while they were still awaiting trial. And then you have the whole question of witness protection, right? You've had witnesses actually killed in Chicago repeatedly because they were going to testify. So the future is already here in Cook County, and it's been very troubling. So this is a legit issue. I don't want to mince words on that. As to how people are presenting that, you know, each person has to be held accountable on their own. I can't answer for other people. I can answer for what we do at WirePoints. And we try and take a deliberate and fact-based approach. That's why we've been looking at all kinds of things like the arrest rates, like all the 911 calls that are high priority but don't get a response in Chicago. We had 400,000 high priority 911 calls that went into backlog status last year. We had to file a Freedom of Information Act request to get that data. We got it. You know, we're finding out all kinds of things, Adam, but I think it's best to work from official data and public data and actual case histories, right? So
I agree.
If we look at case histories here in Cook County, there have been way too many factual news stories. And I will tell you one site, Adam, that I bet you're aware of, that I highly encourage you to look at daily, is called CWB Chicago. You probably know about that crime news site, right?
Yep.
CWB Chicago, and they do their reporting from the court records down on California Avenue. Case after case after case, where a guy with multiple prior convictions commits a new crime, is let out on, say $250, $500 cash bail, $1,000 cash bail, $2,500 even. Somebody throws the bail for him. He gets out, he goes and does more stuff. Then finally, they hold him on no cash bail. Maybe someone's been carjacked or someone's dead. Then they finally impose a stiff cash bail. So the thing that Bob Berlin said when I interviewed him for a story about this, the DuPage County State's attorney, his big concern is that they are taking away judicial discretion. Here's the thing. I might even have criticisms of some Cook County judges. I'm sure I do. But by and large, these are wise women and wise men, right? They don't get to be judges if they're not able to weigh the scales of justice in their hands. Let's give them the leeway. Yes. Let's not try and micromanage them with state law. Let them decide, okay, what about this cat here? Do
they currently have discretion? Don't judges currently have discretion right now? Because again, if these issues are happening right now and we don't have a no cash bail system, and what really changes?
Here's the thing. Tim Evans took away a lot of their discretion in 2017 when he approved this thing called bail reform. There was that doesn't mean they still don't order guys held even on no cash bail or set bail at $1 million. They do have some discretion.
Okay.
Let me be clear, but the discretion is limited much more than it used to be. And the prosecutors too, and this goes to the issue of, hey man, it's not just about cash bail. The prosecutors engage in plea deals, right? Plea agreements all the time. Everybody is overburdened. And here's the thing, they got way more customers than they can handle.
Yeah.
This goes back to culture, community, family, and values. Why are so many young men, and we know it's young men, and by and large, they're under 30. And this is why I saw that sign in a bar window on 103rd Street when I was walking down to Roseland that said nobody under 30 admitted, right? Now, that was a telling moment for me. Why do we have so many young men under 30 who are out there pursuing the thug life? We have to get at that. And I know many good people have been trying for years, but we haven't gotten there yet sufficiently. And the thing is, what I found out on the South Side when I went to talk to people, most people are living an upright life, right?
Yeah, you hope they are.
They are, or there's, there are gradations of that, right? But the problem is we have a tyranny of the minority, right? And it's a large enough minority to really mess stuff up. And if we weren't on TV, I would use different language. But that's what's going on.
Speak your truth, Matt. Speak your truth.
Yeah, the tyranny of that minority is growing, and the size of that minority, sadly, is growing. So what will we as a region, as a people, as a society do about that in New York, LA, Cleveland, Chicago, Milwaukee, New Orleans, Memphis? You heard about the news from Memphis last week, and their murder rate is probably higher than Chicago's.
Yes.
On a per 100K population basis. So, this is not just a Chicago issue. So we're looking at a national issue, and face it, there was a switch got flipped after late May of 2020. There was righteous outrage about what happened to George Floyd, but then how we processed that as a society, we got work to do.
We do have work to do, and we have work. Much of that work is making certain that we get the word out and making certain that people understand the facts and not just use fear as a motivator. I think that people just do better when they understand stuff. But when you hear screaming and yelling on a TV commercial in fear, I think that the conversation just veers off into another space. You may win some people, but then other people are going to look at it just as that's just noise. So I don't know if you win the people's favor with the people by using this brutally tactic, this scare tactic. If you're just joining, welcome to Tea and Conversation. We are here having a very good discussion about the no cash bail, the Safe T Act, and Matt is our subject matter expert for this evening, and I appreciate him taking or fielding your questions and just having a discussion. Matt, if you mind, I want to open it up to see if anybody has any questions. Does any of our guests on the show right now, whether you're new or been here through the whole show, Michelle, do you have any questions? Justin, Mary, any questions for Matt in regards to the no cash bail, the Safe T Act? We always, it seems like these initiatives that are unfavorable, they always get a new name, Matt, right? Obamacare, low affordable health care. It just takes its own, it takes its own leg. Any other questions from any of the people out there about the no cash bail? No, too early to understand it all, right, Mary? I mean, right now it's just, and listen, I don't care if you're in Evanston over there with the whites, Matt, or you're down here on the south side with the blacks. Everybody is concerned about the safety of their community. This is not a white or black issue. I think that right now the problem isn't white or black. I think that we just have a mental health issue that's running enormously rampant through all of our communities. It used to be something that was, it only happens over there. And now it's starting to happen and veer off into other communities. And now people are starting to wait a minute, now we need to fix it. I'm glad that we're having the conversation, but we need to have this conversation before it veers off into other communities so that we can get ahead of it and be more proactive. Matt, give me some closing words. It's 7:54. What would you like to see? You got a magic wand. What would you like to do with that magic wand besides fire Kim Foxx and Lori Lightfoot? I already know that that's on your wish list.
I didn't say that. I didn't say that.
Okay, Matt. Okay, I just had to throw that out there. Okay.
Yeah, but Paul Vallis, we don't endorse candidates. I think that the stiffest challenges to Lori Lightfoot are going to come from Paul Vallis and Ray Lopez, and I think it's going to be an interesting conversation in this mayoral contest. What I would do with respect to the no cash bail provisions of the Safe T Act is, from what I know now, I like the remedy proposed by DuPage County State's Attorney Robert Berlin. When I interviewed him recently for a story that we did at Wire Points, he suggested, and we linked to the New Jersey law. He said, look, we don't need to abolish this act or throw it out or cancel it. It's passed law already. We're arguing about a piece of it that is delayed in its implementation until January 1st. But this law was passed by a fairly large Democratic majority in both chambers. But he said, we can amend it. And he said, us state's attorneys, and there are 102 of them in the state, we are going to be down there getting in the faces of some lawmakers during the November veto session right after the election. And what I will be suggesting to them, Mr. Berlin told me, and he has some company here with some of the other state's attorneys, is to amend the law so that it gives the judges more leeway to hold without cash bail or on a high cash bail before trial, guys who seem really dangerous. Basically, it gives leeway for judicial discretion and doesn't try and micromanage. I could get into all kinds of details of the exact language of the New Jersey law. We link to it in our Wire Points story. But the point is, you can fine tune this stuff. So you don't have to throw out the baby with the bathwater. Now, there are other pieces. If I have my magic wand and I'm king for a day, I would strip away giving the guys who break their ankle bracelets 48 hours to get away before the sheriff can chase them. That's ridiculous. I would strip away taking away the power of the police to arrest somebody for trespassing. What are you going to do if somebody's casing your house at
But
1 in the morning?
That's an interesting thing. Now, I agree with you in terms of the ankle bracelet thing. But I know as a politician, I'm standing in front of the Walmarts that took they took tip funds, and they tell me I can't stand in their parking lot, and because I'm trespassing. They should be able to just lock me up. Shouldn't trespassing be a misdemeanor?
Well, it's up to the police to evaluate whether you're breaking the law as it's currently written. But, a Walmart parking lot, okay, that's a slightly different situation. Maybe you got a point there, but I'm talking about somebody's house. If you've got somebody on your property that is not authorized to be there, and all the best the police can do is ticket him, and then he comes back and he comes back and he comes back. That's not a very cool situation to me.
Yeah, I agree. I think that we need to look at. I think we need to look at some of those items that are in there. And some of them, they seem to be a little bit more trivia than necessary, because trespassing should be a misdemeanor. I don't. Well, if somebody's in your backyard, Matt, you can't shoot them anyway, right? You got to call the police. It could be crossing. It could be the guy looking at your gas meter.
No, yeah, okay. And if it is, fine. Then a good cop's not going to arrest them in the first place for something.
Good cop.
Like that. There's discretion for policemen too, right? Just like judges. But I think too, they need to do away with this idea of they're considering now, they have a study committee looking at stripping the right to qualified immunity from police. If they get rid of that in the end, that means cops are exposed to civil lawsuits, quite possibly just for doing their job, not for beating people up unwarranted. So that is already, the fact that they are looking at stripping away qualified immunity has already led to an exodus. Here's the other thing. We need to look at the numbers of retirements before pension kicks in. There is a mass departure on the order of 10 to 20% of police officers are leaving law enforcement agencies across the state of Illinois since the passage of this bill. In addition to that, we have, the growth in crime in Chicago, particularly compared to the baseline year of 2019, which is proper baseline year. Crime still up dramatically. There is fear already for legitimate reasons. Let's not forget about that. This debate is overshadowing a lot of things, but it is an important debate, and it is important to get the facts right. And I commend you for trying to shed some additional light on it tonight, Adam.
Yeah. Well, again, Matt, I want to thank you very much for joining me on TN Conversation.
Adam, if I can jump in for a second.
Of course you can, Miss Mary.
First of all, I'm just glad to be part of the Tea Conversation and with Adam, Winston, and Matt. I have enjoyed hearing your input in reference to the no cash bail, and something you stated, and I can concur, that we're in this together. We have to find a common ground in reference to this and to try to resolve this. We do know that sometimes people is caught up in, and especially people of color, they don't have those resources or money. And then we know through history, sometimes, not everybody, but sometimes a person really is not guilty. Okay, so then we must give them options. We should always have a way to allow individuals option. With that being said, if I can go into a set way in reference to an upcoming event, the IMEJ Business and Professional Women Federation It's an event whereas we give the individuals the tools and the wherewithal to move the needle in a positive way within various community. And it's on this Friday, September 16 at 6 p.m. in the village of Maywood. So if you want further information, please reach out to Adam in reference to this event, the annual Working Women Workshop. Thank you so much, and thank you for allowing me to listen in on this conversation. And I thank Matt once again for taking out time just to indulge with this.
And I'd like to thank you as well, Matt. Matt, every Monday we do this, and especially right now, it's a hot button topic. And so I hope that if you have new information that you feel free, you don't need it, and you don't need an invite, Matt. You already got the link, it never changes. You can always come back here and you can always update us to things as they happen so that we can make certain that people are more aware about what's going on. So again, Matt, thank you very much for joining us on Tea and Conversation. And you got a partner here, Matt, somehow.
Yeah. Hey, Adam, thank you for having me on. And if I could just mention one last thing for folks that would like to stay tuned to our brand of factual information and analysis at Wire Points, I encourage you all to check out Wire Points. It's a nonpartisan news nonprofit at wirepoints.org.
Wirepoint.org.
Wirepoints with an S.org, and spelled just like it sounds. And there's a place to sign up for a daily new email with our latest headlines. That's all. Just giving folks one more resource to dial into some useful, nonpartisan, fact-based information on the pressing issues of the day.
Fantastic, Matt. Again,
okay,
thank you. Hey, go ahead, Justin. Well, welcome, Justin. You've been kind of
I just want to introduce myself. My name is Justin. Thanks for having me on, Adam. My name is Justin. I'm running for the 21st Ward Alderman.
Oh. Wow.
Can you put that in the chat real quick?
I can. So you want the WirePoint link?
Yes.
I'll put that in the chat.
Yeah, wirepoints.org. And you'll see articles about Amendment 1. If you go to our site, the original content is all in the right-hand column. We also aggregate material from other news sources. So like each morning, you are going to get a fresh blast of the top news stories of the day from around the region, from mainstream media, and then you're going to get our original content from Wire Points that we write. You're going to get that in the right-hand column. So it's like an all-in-one Illinois news site on the stuff that really matters. And we're finding that people like it, and we're getting more and more readers and subscribers to our free daily email.
And it looks like it goes all across the state. Am I correct on that, Matt?
Yes. We cover news from all around the state, stuff that's going on in Springfield, Decatur, you name it. But a lot about the legislature, a lot about Chicago and greater Chicagoland for sure.
Fantastic. Again, I'd like to thank Matt for joining us. Wirepoints.org. Please sign up for it so you can stay in the know. Until next Monday, I will see you guys next week here at Tea and Conversation. Thank you very much. I'm your host, Adam Winston. I will see you next Monday.
Thank you, Adam.